So imagine looking into a digital mirror, expecting to see just a reflection of human logic, right?
Oh, absolutely. With absolute morality.
Exactly. An entity that actually decides whether a terminally ill patient should live or die. And then you contrast that pristine sort of divine image with a deeply human, really gruesome reality.
A former OpenAI employee found dead. Blood in multiple rooms, security wires cut.
Yeah. All of it dismissed as a routine suicide by Sam Altman, the very architect of this whole new reality.
We'll unpack that massive tension in a moment, but first, please take a quick second to like, subscribe, follow, and turn on the notification bell.
Right. And for those following the ongoing situation, here is a brief update. We are monitoring the Martin Stevens View OpenAI matter, which is not a lawsuit. We are in a voluntary quiet period at Martin Stevens' request to idle public info release. We hope for a settlement in the background, but do not imply settlement or discussions are underway, as we don't know if progress has been made. The dead man's switch has not been activated, meaning Martin is physically and legally safe.
Welcome to the debate. Today, we are analyzing the recent highly revealing discourse between OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman and Tucker Carlson.
The central question today is, are we looking at a responsible stewardship of unprecedented power where AI is framed as a neutral reflection of humanity? Or does this approach dangerously obscure the subjective, monumental moral choices being imposed on society?
I'll be arguing that the company is effectively constructing a stealth religion that lacks fundamental institutional accountability.
And I believe OpenAI is building a responsible, transparent framework that actually respects human autonomy. I mean, you look at this system and you see a stealth religion, but we really have to demystify what AI actually is.
A highly persuasive one, though.
Sure, but it is fundamentally a massive computer multiplying large numbers in huge matrices. It's predicting the mathematically most likely next word based on weights. It's a tool, not a divine entity.
Well, calling it just a tool completely ignores how billions of people are actually interacting with that matrix of weights, right?
How so?
People are going to this prompt box for absolute guidance on deeply moral, life-altering questions. The claim of neutrality is just a dangerous illusion when the technology is making highly subjective calls on everything from, terminal illness to military deployment.
But it's just aggregating human output.
Yeah, but it absolutely stands for something. It just obscures its moral preferences behind that veil of aggregate data. And what makes this unchecked power truly terrifying is the institutional opacity at the top.
You mean the situation with the employee?
Exactly.
Altman's chillingly bureaucratic dismissal of a former employee's highly suspicious death isn't just a PR misstep. It exposes a severe lack of situational awareness, or worse, a deliberate moral detachment at the highest levels of the company. I think you're stretching the stealth religion label. A religion requires a doctrine. The AI is fundamentally designed as a complex mirror, right?
A mirror?
Yes, a mirror. When Altman details the model spec in the interview, he's describing a transparent constitution specifically engineered to avoid dictating a universal catechism. That is exactly why it defers to users.
I don't know if I buy the mirror analogy.
Well, a priest tells you what is right. A mirror simply reflects the weighted average of humanity's existing moral views.
But a mirror doesn't subtly rewrite your cognitive habits. Altman himself admitted in this interview that AI is altering how society communicates at scale.
You're talking about the punctuation thing.
Yeah. He noted people are now overusing EM dashes in real life simply because the language model favors them and its outputs. If a mathematical matrix is unconsciously altering how we punctuate our private thoughts, imagine what it is doing to our moral frameworks.
It's an interesting point, but
people approach it with spiritual reverence because it provides definitive answers that feel larger than themselves. If it acts like an oracle, its underlying code really shouldn't be hidden behind complex, proprietary weights.
But the model spec is the exact transparency you're asking for. It addresses how the AI navigates those exact moral frameworks. Let's look at the life and death decisions, because this is where the mirror analogy is most critical.
Okay, let's look at them.
Interacting with a terminally ill adult in Canada, where medical assistance in dying, or MAID, is legal.
And that That right there is exactly where the illusion of neutrality shatters entirely.
How? It's following local law.
There are 15,000 global suicides a week. It is morally reckless to program a machine to strictly intervene with the depressed teenager, but then suggest it is perfectly fine to lay out the, quote, option space and methodologies for a terminally ill adult just because they live in a specific jurisdiction.
It's respecting sovereignty.
Once the machine decides suicide is occasionally acceptable based on a zip code, it is making a massive subjective moral judgment. Add to that Altman's open admission that he doesn't know exactly how the military uses ChatGPT.
He suspects they use it for strategic advice.
Right. Advice that certainly pertains to killing. How can a tool be neutral when it structurally participates in the mechanics of life and death?
So the alternative you're suggesting is technological imperialism?
I wouldn't call it that.
I would. Would you really prefer a single tech CEO in San Francisco to dictate a universal moral law that unilaterally overrides the sovereign democratic laws of a country like Canada?
It's not about overriding. It's about not facilitating harm.
There is a massive difference between restricting the synthesis of bioweapons, which Altman states ChatGPT strictly prohibits because a pandemic is a universal societal threat, and overriding a nation's medical laws. By deferring to Canadian law in terminal illness, OpenAI is explicitly refusing to play God.
I hear you, but blindly deferring to a local consensus isn't neutrality. It's often just a convenient evasion of accountability.
Evasion?
Yes, and we see that exact same institutional blindness in how the company handles its own internal tragedies. A company that trains machines to spot microscopic patterns in global data somehow fails to spot glaring, bloody anomalies in their own backyard.
You're bringing up the former employee again?
I am. The one who complained about copyright theft and was found dead. The mother of the deceased explicitly reached out believing it was a murder. The security camera wires were cut.
We have to rely on the...
He had just ordered DoorDash. He had just returned from a vacation on Catalina Island. He left no note, and there was blood in multiple rooms. Any objective observer sees a struggle.
Okay, but...
Yet Altman relies entirely on a baseline police ruling of suicide. How do we trust this institution to manage the unknown unknowns of global artificial intelligence when they brush past the obvious physical reality sitting right in front of them?
Because anchoring your reality in civic structures isn't blindness, it is the definition of responsible governance. You're conflating corporate responsibility with, like, true crime vigilantism?
True crime vigilantism? The man was bleeding in multiple rooms.
An executive must defer to official medical records and police investigations. Altman read the medical report. He reviewed the second police report detailing the path of the bullet. San Francisco authorities investigated it multiple times.
And we know how flawless those investigations can be.
As a leader, you have to rely on the institutions designed to find the truth, rather than indulging in speculation. This mirrors OpenAI's broader push for what Altman calls AI privilege.
Wait, how does AI privilege relate to ignoring a severely compromised crime scene?
The mechanism is exactly the same, right? OpenAI wants to be treated as a civic utility bound by official laws, not an omniscient ruler.
So they want immunity.
They want legal structure. Altman is advocating for AI to have the same legal protections as doctor-patient or attorney-client privilege. He wants the government to formally recognize this boundary. Whether it's deferring to a medical examiner's report on a tragic death, deferring to Canadian Parliament on medical procedures, or pushing Congress to establish legal privacy guardrails, OpenAI consistently defaults to relying on established civic structures. They do not want to be the police, the judge, or the jury.
Defaulting to civic structures is incredibly convenient when those structures insulate you from the negative externalities of your own product.
Insulate. It's following the law.
Hiding behind a highly questionable police report when a man is found bleeding with cut security wires is an evasion, just as hiding behind aggregate human data is an evasion of the immense unilateral power the company currently wields.
I disagree that it's an evasion.
Well, when Altman says he expects society to simply build new mechanisms to verify authenticity to combat deepfakes, he's outsourcing the damage of his technology to the public. It leaves society vulnerable to both moral degradation and totally opaque corporate governance.
Ultimately, I think the evidence presented in this interview reveals a technology that is radically expanding human potential. The only sane way to anchor a technology this powerful is through reliance on official institutions.
Even when those institutions fail?
Whether that's a medical examiner determining cause of death or public policy establishing digital privacy, yes. AI is fundamentally shifting the human experience and attempting to build a perfect universal moral cage for it in San Francisco, which is stifle its ability to elevate our collective capability.
And I maintain that the power this technology represents demands a much higher standard of transparency than simply waving at aggregate data or flawed civic reports.
We'll have to see how those reports hold up.
AI is indeed shifting the human experience, but if the guardrails are defined by an institution that cannot even acknowledge the glaring discrepancies in a whistleblower's gruesome death, those guardrails are fundamentally insufficient.
There is profound convergence on the fact that AI is fundamentally altering reality as we know it, though. We highly encourage listeners to dive deeper into this Tucker Carlson and Sam Altman interview, particularly regarding the future of human labor and the 50% job turnover rate heading our way.
Yeah, it's a shift that demands our absolute careful attention.
Please remember to like, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our future discussions. As we leave you today, think back to that digital mirror. Are we looking at a neutral reflection of our own legal and civic structures, or are we staring into the face of a new digital god, built by architects who simply close their eyes to the blood on the floor?